Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Lollipop and today I'm going to be doing a full comparison video between the Trek Dual Sport and Marlin bikes. I feel like a lot of people could look at these bikes and get confused on which one they should buy since they do have some comparable prices and look a bit similar as well. I actually did see the 2021 Dual Sport 3 at my local bike shop recently, so I'll throw some pictures and videos of that up right now if you are interested, but what's actually funny is that I did think these bikes were the new 2021 Marlin 5s in orange when I saw them at first, but then I came closer and realized that they were the Dual Sport bikes because of their narrower handlebars and some other parts. But anyways, in my videos I usually try to go in depth about various components on each bike, comparing things like the drivetrains and suspension forks in detail, but doing that for all 8 bikes in this video would get too complicated, and since I've already compared all the Marlin series bikes with each other, I wanted to make a simpler video that can quickly and easily help you understand what the main differences between these bikes are, and what they are intended for. That being said, I will also include a table at the end of this video going over all the main differences between the Dual Sport 1 and Marlin 5 as an example of what changes between the two lineups. Now before I begin, I want to make a few notes about the bikes I'm covering so we're on the same page. I'm only going to focus on the men's versions of all these bikes, and only ones offered in the United States. I will note that there are women's versions of almost all of these bikes, but the only differences they have are a more comfortable women's seat and some different colors. There are also international versions of some of these bikes, but usually the only differences they have are the color options available, with the exception of the Marlin 4, which actually has some different components and a different frame entirely. But I've covered those differences in my Trek Marlin 4 versus Marlin 5 video, so check that out if you want to see that. Now I'm going to give a bit of an overview on both the Dual Sport and Marlin lineups, to help you understand generally what they are supposed to be used for. The Dual Sport lineup is one of Trek's hybrid bike lines, which means that they have wider tires than road bikes and narrower tires than mountain bikes, so they're somewhere in between the two. They're intended to work just as well on the pavement as on gravel, and can thus be used as your only bike, riding on roads and on light trails without worry. I would personally say that this bike is intended for riders who want to ride 50% on the road and 50% on the trail. That being said, these bikes are not really intended to go on anything more difficult than intermediate trails, since their tires and suspension forks and other components are not as suitable for those big bumps on rougher terrain. I think they can make great commuter bikes since you will worry less about the tire getting a puncture if you hit a thorn or rock or something, since they are wider and have more tread than road bike tires, but then again they won't be as good as mountain bike tires in terms of a softer ride and preventing punctures. The Dual Sports can also be great fitness bikes as well if you want a more rugged commuter or fitness bike than a normal road bike, as they will be able to go on some trails. They also have DuoTrap S compatibility, which allows you to place a separate device on your bike that connects to your phone and tracks your fitness progress on the bike. The Marlin bikes, on the other hand, are not too far off from the Dual Sport bikes, but they are basically Trek's entry-level mountain bikes. They have wider mountain bike tires and better suspension forks for the trail, and thus are more oriented for trail use, though they can be a pretty rugged commuter bike as well and can serve that purpose just fine. I would say these bikes would be better for someone who wants to ride trails more often, or perhaps wants to ride more difficult trails and have a safer and more comfortable ride. The Marlin 4 and 5 are the more entry-level bikes, so they would probably be used 40% on the road and 60% on the trail, while the Marlin 6 has a more trail-oriented drivetrain, so it might be a 35% road and 65% trail split, while the 7 is more expensive and has many components better oriented for trail use, so it's more of a 25% road and 75% trail riding bike. That being said, the Marlin 4 and 5 can totally be used solely on the road if you choose to use them for that purpose, since they do have a 3x7 drivetrain, giving you 21 different speeds to choose from when you're on the road. In my personal experience with my Marlin 5, I use it to commute to the trails I ride every day, and it seems fine for that purpose. It has enough gears for me to get through the road climb and is fast enough for sure. I do have a hybrid and road bike as well, and those bikes do seem faster on the road due to their thinner tires and lighter weight, but if the Marlin is the only bike you own, I feel like it can work comfortably as a commuter. So that's the general gist of what each of these bikes should be used for. Now I'm going to do an actual comparison between the Dual Sport 1 and the Marlin 5, both from 2021, since these bikes are at the exact same price point of $550, and it may be hard to find their differences easily. But if you are not interested in that, the main thing to remember about these bikes is that the Dual Sport is going to be faster on the road than the Marlin bikes, and is perfect for someone who just wants a commuter or a fitness bike that is more comfortable, stable, and less likely to get punctures than a road bike. The Marlin bike is more for the rider who either wants a really rugged commuter bike that can handle being jumped off curbs and is much less likely to get punctures, or for the beginner mountain biker hoping to improve their skills and ride a bunch of trails around their town. But let's look into the components of both the Dual Sport 1 and the Marlin 5 to show you what I mean. I won't cover every single component, but I do want to highlight the main differences. So first off, let's talk about the frames. Both frames have internal cable routing, but all the Dual Sport bikes use the same Alpha Gold aluminum frame, while all the Marlin bikes use Trek's Alpha Silver aluminum frame. The gold aluminum is lighter in weight, stronger, and smoother than the silver version. The Dual Sport frame also features the DuoTrap S compatibility mentioned before, and the geometry on these frames is different as well, as the Dual Sport is more oriented towards comfort while the Marlin is more oriented toward sport and trail use for cross-country, though both should be fairly comfortable on the road. The suspension forks are also pretty different between these bikes, with the Dual Sport using the SR Suntour NEX coil fork, which has 63mm of travel, while the Marlin uses the SR Suntour XCE 28, which has 100mm of travel. The Marlin's fork is definitely more trail-oriented since the longer travel allows the bike to go over bigger bumps much more comfortably, but most mountain bikes do not go under 100mm of travel for a suspension fork. However, the shorter 63mm travel on the Dual Sport 1 will be completely fine for light trails and some bumps, though I would not recommend it for bumpier terrain as the fork's not made for that purpose. The wheels are definitely a main difference, with the Dual Sport using hybrid bike tires, which are 700x40C, meaning that the tires are around 1.57 inches wide, while the Marlin bikes use tires that are 2 inches wide in the rear and 2.2 inches wide in the front, for better traction and comfort on trails and on the road. The Marlin tires will also be more resistant to tire punctures and other damages. The handlebars and stem are also different, with the Marlin bikes using wider handlebars for better control of the bike on trails and in general, and a shorter stem which allows for better turning in tight corners. The Dual Sport thus has a longer stem which offers more stability at higher speeds when you're going faster on the road, and narrower handlebars which can be easier if you're biking in narrower areas, but generally narrower handlebars will accompany a longer stem. Next we have the brakes. For the case of these two bikes, the Dual Sport 1 uses mechanical disc brakes, while the Marlin 5 uses hydraulic disc brakes. Hydraulic brakes have better stopping power than mechanical ones, and they work better in all weather conditions. They also require little to no maintenance after installation, but that being said, the mechanical disc brakes should be completely fine for the type of riding that the Dual Sport is intended for, since my personal hybrid bike has mechanical disc brakes as well, and I've had no issues in terms of stopping power. And the final component I'll talk about is the drivetrain. Now both of these bikes have a 3x7 drivetrain that uses Shimano Tourney and Shimano Altus parts, but the Dual Sport 1's cassette is different, as it has 14 teeth on the smallest cog and 34 teeth on the largest cog, compared to the Marlin 5's 12 to 32 tooth cassette. The cranks are different as well, and while both bikes have 3 chainrings in the front, the Dual Sport uses 48 to 38 to 28 tooth gears, going from largest to smallest, while the Marlin uses a 42 to 34 to 24 tooth setup. The Dual Sport has more teeth on its chainrings to account for the larger number of teeth in the cassette, but the Marlin does have better gear ratios overall. The weight is also slightly different between these bikes, and the Dual Sport bikes will always be lighter than the Marlins since they have a lighter frame and lighter wheels due to the narrower width. Overall, I'd say the main difference between these bikes is the frame and the wheel set. But to sum it all up again, look at the Dual Sport line if you want a good commuter or fitness bike that is more durable and comfortable than a road bike, but look at the Marlin series if you want a beginner mountain bike to ride on trails, or a very rugged commuter bike that you would have to worry less about overall. And that is all for this video. I hope all of you enjoyed, and I hope this helped you out in understanding which bike serves which purpose. And if it did, please like the video and subscribe so I know, and leave a comment if you have any suggestions or anything to add. But with that, thank you so much for watching, and keep biking.